Hello everyone, the Nerdy Steve here, and today we will be featuring Yellow Hat's Fight Rigging Explorer deck. The link to the list is in the description below. I'll be talking about the general game plan, some of the card choices, and a little bit about the sideboard, and then we'll play a couple of matches. So, let's go. If you played Standard, this Fight Rigging combo has showed up in Standard a little bit, but the Explorer version kind of turns it up to a much higher power level. So, Fight Rigging is a card where at the beginning of your combat on your turn, you put a +1/+1 counter on a creature you control. And we know that with cards like Llanowar Elves, that's a very powerful ability. But Fight Rigging has a couple other things going for it. It has Hideaway 5. So when it enters the battlefield, you look at the top 5 cards of your library, and you exile one of them. And Fight Rigging also, after it puts a +1/+1 counter on a creature, if that creature has a power of 7 or greater, you get to now cast the exiled card without paying its mana cost. And that's where the combo comes in. You get to Fight Rigging and hide away something, and then you get to cast it for free. And in this deck, there are a lot of cards where after only one trigger with Fight Rigging, on a Shakedown Heavy or Rotting Regisaur, you can then immediately cast the card you hid away for free. Now, that's not only why this deck is good. The deck kind of functions on 3 different really powerful things going. So, and they all kind of relate together. So first is the really cheap and really big creature plan. We have Rotting Regisaur, Shakedown Heavy, and Lovestruck Beast, along with, to a lesser extent, Rhonas, right? But on the second turn of the game, you can turn 1 Llanowar Elves into turn 2 Rotting Regisaur, or turn 1 Llanowar Elves into turn 2 Shakedown Heavy. And then without Llanowar Elves, you can also Lovestruck Beast on turn 3, right? But those cards are really big threats on their own, and they can end games if your opponent cannot interact with them favorably, right? And so that in itself is a very powerful and effective game plan against some decks. Not all decks this is good against. A Cat Oven deck, for example, can chump block Rotting Regisaur literally all day. But so we have that axis of the deck where, oh, we have really cheap, big threats. On the other hand, we also have the Fight Rigging combo, which this combines with those threats. Now we get to Fight Rigging, which not only pumps up our already big creatures, but now we get to cast another card for free. And what Fight Rigging does is, besides the card advantage coming from that, it now also, if our opponent is clogging up the board and we need to diversify the power of our creatures, you can start putting counters on Llanowar Elves or a Werewolf pack leader, and you can start now having 2 or 3 different big creatures, in addition to the free card that you're getting from Fight Rigging. And so that's where another line of the deck goes. And then on the third part, in addition to be a Fight Rigging deck, it is also a Great Henge deck, where Great Henge, if you can cast it on turn 3 or 4 after a Rotting Regisaur or a Shakedown Heavy or a Lovestruck Beast, now you are, if anyone remembers playing against this card in Standard, now not only are your big creatures getting bigger and you're gaining life every turn, which puts you out of range of the more aggressive decks, you're now just drawing more cards and drawing more cards. And once you get the Great Henge going, now you can find your Fight Riggings more, which you can then hide away more specific cards that you're drawing into, and it kind of snowballs into this really big, massive card advantage engine that you're also applying these really huge lethal threats to the battlefield. And so that's like, this isn't just an aggressive deck, it's also a Fight Rigging deck and also a Great Henge deck. And a lot that's a lot of powerful stuff to be doing in one deck, and it makes it really hard for opposing players to learn to navigate the games, because they also don't know what game plan they're necessarily going off against. And some strategies are more effective than others, right? However, removal is still always very good against this deck. FYI. So now I just want to talk about more about the specific card choices. So Llanowar Elves is very, very important. If you can get a turn ahead of your opponent's removal, or you're just very, very quick, sometimes it just, if your opponent's playing combo deck like Greasefang, it doesn't matter if they have maybe a turn 3 or 4 Greasefang with Parhelion if they're dead, right? And this deck can come out very, very quick, and Llanowar Elves helps that. We have Thoughtseize as kind of the one-off disruption. I think there's more in the sideboard. This is kind of just something that just fits in that can help you when we don't really need another threat in the main deck. Valki is a card that you can see in the standard version. It happens. If you hide away Valki with Fight Rigging, you can cast the Planeswalker side with with Fight Rigging. So you can on the third turn potentially cast Tibble the Cosmic Imposter, and that is just sometimes game over for a lot of decks because they cannot deal with it. And if they do deal with it, you've already gained so much advantage from it. Also, Tibble is the reason why we have Timbercrown Pathway and Cragcrown Pathway. Sometimes you need the red source if you naturally draw Valki to cast it later on in the game. Scavenging Ooze is a card that can pump itself, so it helps with the fight rigging if you don't have any of your big creatures and need to get there quickly, but also life gain and some sustain there, and graveyard interaction for decks like Greasefang or when you need it. So it's just there as a general good card. It is also a collected company target, which we'll get to. We also have Werewolf Pack Leader, which is very, very obviously powerful. It's a card that combos well with fight rigging because eventually it will start drawing cards by itself without even needing help from any other attacking creatures. It gets bigger and bigger, and then you can give it trample naturally. So it's just a really, really card in this deck. And helps just a lot. Sometimes you need to draw more cards to, if your opponent's a very heavy removal deck, right? You can sometimes fall behind and not get your pieces that you need. And drawing 1 or 2 extra cards in the game with the Werewolf Pack Leader can help you find the pieces that you need to win. And then we have Rotting Regisaur, Shakedown Heavy, and Lovestruck Beast as all the really big, beefy creatures that work well with Fight Rigging and Great Henge. And that's just why they're here. And you can maybe change the numbers. I think this is really, really fine. But maybe you might want another Shakedown Heavy over a Lovestruck Beast or a Regisaur. Like, I don't know or the deck well enough, and maybe you have stronger opinions, but I think this is fine. I think maybe Shakedown Heavy potentially might be better against if you see more cat oven decks, because the menace means they need 2 cats or 2 creatures to block, so it can't just be chunk block by 1 cat, which is kind of important. But I think overall, these are fairly interchangeable. But the Rotting Regisaur is just really, really good, and the extra power and not giving your opponent the ability to cut the Shakedown Heavy from ever attacking is obviously very, very important. So let me know what you think. And then we also have Rhonas, which is really, really good at pumping up your other creatures by giving them trample and making them be lethal by themselves. They cannot chump block with Cauldron Familiar if the card has trample. And Rhonas can also jumpstart your Werewolf Pack Leader or Scavenging Ooze to have the 7 power to trigger fight rigging, which is important. Sometimes you really, really need the fight rigging card as soon as possible, and knowing that Rhonas can give a creature +2/+0 to maybe get it a turn earlier than you normally would is what you need to win the game, and that's something to really, really be aware of. Kiora's great because not only does it potentially ramp you if you need that, but also with Lovestruck Beast, Shakedown Heavy, and Regisaur, you're just drawing all these cards, and this deck can kind of snowball, and you want it to. And that's why Kiora is here. We have Collected Company. You can end step Collected Company, and then you just have a surprise 14 power of creatures on the board, which a lot of decks can't deal with. Then we also have the Turntimber Serpentine Wood and Turntimber Symbiosis, which you don't see this card a lot, but what it does is it can find any creature in your main deck and give it 3+1/+1 counters, which for the most part can make everything automatically trigger fight rigging. But the creatures you're finding are all very, very, very good. And so Symbiosis just plays really well into what this deck is trying to do. You need the big creatures so you can, not only are they powerful in themselves, right, but they trigger Kiora, they trigger fight rigging, they trigger the Great Henge. So you don't normally see this in a lot of mono green decks or heavy green decks because it is a 7-mana sorcery and you can't necessarily afford that all the time. But in this deck, it just is so synergistic with what we're trying to do. It's just what we need and what we want. And we also have the Great Henge, which I've talked about. Great Henge is beautiful and amazing. Cast it for 2 mana once in your life, and you will never, ever look at Magic again in the same way. And then the sideboard is basically kind of what you would expect. This deck, it's very, very weak to removal in a lot of ways, so that is something where you might want to bring in Thoughtseize against more heavy removal decks or more control decks, because if they can remove certain things early on, it's going to really stall your board, and if you're stalling out, it's very, very hard for you to get going again, and so Thoughtseize helps in that type of matchup. Fatal Push against decks that, might be too quick before you start to get going, so you need to hold them off a little bit. Kraul Harpooner. This card has been amazing for me against mono blue decks because those have gotten very, very popular. And so having a creature that, can kill certain things when it enters the battlefield for only 2 mana is really, really powerful. And it can also potentially kill a Corvold as well. But the important thing is, with the Undergrowth ability, it can enter the battlefield and then trigger fight rigging. Or enter the battlefield and for 2 mana you have a really, really big creature that now has discounted the Great Henge, right? So Kraul Harpooner can do a lot of different things, but it's really, really good in matchups when your opponent has flying creatures, like also angels as well. And then we have Culling Ritual, which is a big board wipe for maybe the Cat Oven decks where they have a lot of Trail of Crumbs and ovens that you need to deal with before you can really, really go over them, because they can kind of keep up with you if you don't have a very quick start. And so this is kind of the reset button that will help you. And with all of that, let's go play some matches. Okay. Now, this isn't wonderful, but we'll give Genki a Oko Kiss. Oh, that Lovestruck Beast was really good. I think we just want to ooze here. Next turn we get to fight rigging. Harvester. Oh, I wonder if Genki's on the Parhelion combo. And if we do, we really want Scavenging Ooze to live. Also, we probably want to save Boseiju for Parhelion. I would love to know if it's just a regular Mardu good stuff. No blocks. I want to put the counter there. Because I want to be able to block. Table. Okay. The epic here. Now, a fatal push would be terrible for us.
By a crack. I love to make a splash.
Opponent gets to discard. And maybe I shouldn't have attacked with the Ooze if I'm afraid of Parhelion. That may have been a little too aggressive. It wasn't. Or maybe it was. Who knows? Okay. Still not sure if it's Parhelion or just a Mardu good stuff list, which is a little bad, because I would love to know more. I do think maybe we can get rid of Kiora. Maybe we can go down to a Great Henge and remove a Regisaur. They have a lot of small creatures and a lot of removal, and I don't want to get stuck with Regisaur or a Great Henge. And Great Henge in my hand or a Regisaur on the battlefield. Culling Ritual, God, they have a lot of... But we didn't see any ovens, so maybe I don't want to remove those. Do we want Thoughtseize? Probably. But I'm not going to bring it in because I don't know what I'm doing. And that's okay. You can tell me what you would do instead. Okay. Alright. We get a turn 2 fight rigging with nothing to rig. Except the Llanowar Elves. So don't kill my elves, please. And now we get to do that. Our Llanowar Elves becomes closer and closer to an amazing, unstoppable force every turn. I think I want to fight rig again. I was like, I'm assuming they have a fatal push, but... What this does mean is next turn, if Llanowar Elves is not killed, we get to Great Henge post-combat. Which is gonna be really, really amazing. For us, not for our opponent. Alright, it is a Kroxa. We have not seen a Parhelion yet, so... Still a little worried about that, but I don't think I need to. I think we'll be fine. Alright, there's the Fatal Push. And a really big Kroxa. Sadly, no. We're low on black mana. We have the Llanowar Elves, though, attacking. And we're gonna draw another card with Pack Leader. Because also, with Rhonas now out on the battlefield, all of our creatures are gonna be big trampling threats. And Blooding Away just has land, sadly. GG. Alright. This hand is exactly what we need. This is how the deck wants to work. So please let it. I think I want to Shakedown Heavy. Here. Do they have a counterspell? Okay. They could have removal for the Regisaur. Alright. They could have waited until our upkeep for that. So we discarded a card. And now we just have to hope our opponent isn't on some kind of combo deck. Because no matter how good this start is, if they can just go off with Indomitable creativity, it's not gonna matter. They could potentially have, and we don't know what type of Indomitable deck they are. They could just have Ancient or Agent of Treachery. Which, from this position, if they tap out, we're still probably fine. They could just be a Jeskai control deck, which I doubt, but Absorb might be indicative of that. Good. And now I want to see what they have, so we're gonna do that. I don't know. We don't know what type of deck they are, so I'm hesitant to sideboard too much. But I don't know. Valki seem maybe not Ooze because they probably don't rely too much on the graveyard. Maybe we can get rid of Regisaur. We have to mulligan this because we have nothing. We have to mulligan this because literal nothing. Okay. By Werewolf, by Rhonas. We have a turn 2 Shakedown bot followed by a Rigging, which is good. Alright, that goes away. Oh, Thoughtseize is nice. We get to see what our opponent is playing with. Alright, so they are a control deck. But by starting down 2 cards, it's so terrible for us, right? Oh, make disappear even. Because they can just 1-for-1 us, and they have the time now. I'm gonna wait. Alright. Now we can at least Thoughtseize our opponent. We get to see what's going on, and then maybe resolve a fight rigging. This is not good. And we will just concede. Yeah. A Multi 5 will sometimes do that. Now we can bring back the Scavenging Ooze because we know what type of deck our opponent is, and we need to interact with their graveyard. Maybe we can get rid of Kiora. Probably one Henge. And a Valki. Okay. We like this hand. We don't need to mulligan because we have lands and cards to cast. So I'm happy with that. We're gonna save Thoughtseize until turn 2. Or maybe we wait and see what our opponent's gonna do. I meant to do that last turn, so that's my bad. And we'll wait. They'll probably... Alright, Justice Strike. Okay. That messing up my land order was a big mistake. There But we'll be fine. Now we can Thoughtseize. Opus, Gear Hulk. Let's get rid of Gear Hulk. We can do Heart's Desire so we can start, you know, attacking for a little bit. Now we need our opponent to just brick for 1 or 2 turns. Rhonas cannot be Fatefold or Jawari'd here, which is good. And now we can fight rigging the Rhonas now. I don't like any of this.
This isn't a fight. Let's skip to the good part.
None of this is particularly wonderful, actually. Still can't attack.
I'm getting too old for this. You know what? I'm not done yet.
Sorry. And then... let's see what our opponent does about this fight rigging. We really want to kill Teferi.
That was on.
Doesn't kill Teferi, but, you know, close enough, right?
Hurry.
Please don't have a counter or anything. Oh, that's wonderful. Or do we just... yeah, no, we have to send them both. Our opponent has a Wandering Emperor or anything. We are screwed regardless, right? I can't believe that happened.
That didn't go according to plan.
Fable, okay. We will get rid of Magma Opus. Get rid of Absence. And we will get rid of Justice Strike. Eight. Go. So, alright. There are a lot of things I'm potentially afraid of. Here. But we're kind of in an okay spot. Only kind of. Let's fight rigging. See what our opponent does here. Veto. Okay. We're gonna Heart's Desire, so we create a 1/1 token that allows our Lovestruck Beast to attack. If our opponent tries to kill the 1/1, we can make a Lair of the Hydra a 1/1. So our Lovestruck Beast can still attack. Loving a Hydra when a human is not enough. And I think that's something that we all can relate to. We were very, very fortunate our opponent didn't draw any real interaction with the Teferi. When the Teferi was out on the battlefield, I was 100% sure we lost. But now, it's looking like it might not be the case. Opponent can't cast Magma Opus? Okay. Okay. And now that is going to be probably on the Llanowar Elves. Opponent has to block here. Yeah, our opponent has to block one of them, but it has to be here because we can give this +2/+0 and trample. And that would be lethal. So now, everything on our board can kill our opponent. They could have a Magma Opus that might potentially be able to save them. I don't think it would. But I think we're golden now. And we don't have to do anything, let them have a response or two. Yep. GG, unless they have 1 mana removal for the token. Oh, brutal. Good game. Thank you for watching me play some fight rigging in Explorer. The deck was really interesting, and I definitely learned a lot while playing it. The most important part for me was understanding how all of the pieces interacted with each other and how important the individual things are. I talked about at the beginning of the video how there were kind of 3 lanes to this deck, and I think as I was playing it, I saw how those lanes kind of intermixed a little more. And that's important because you really need to understand your game plan going in and how you're going to win. And I think knowing if this is a fight rigging opening hand versus a Great Henge versus just a really big Shakedown Heavy Rotting Regisaur beatdown plan is something that takes time to learn and takes time to navigate correctly. And I felt the more games I played, the more I understood that type of nuance with the deck. And so it's a deck that definitely gets better the more you play with it, because as it was going on, I was starting to get everything and understand, oh, okay, I need to do this. And additionally, different decks that you're playing against, either mono blue or control or whatever, is going to interact with this deck in a different way as well. I mean, that's all a Magic, right? But here specifically, knowing if your opponent's deck can beat your beatdown strategy, maybe you have to mulligan your hand to be like, okay, I need the Great Henge in order to overwhelm them. Or, hey, my opponent has a lot of ways to interact with my counter magic, so the Great Henge is never going to resolve, so I really need a Rotting Regisaur on turn 2 in order to beat them, right? And so I think that is something that is really, really important to think about and will make you have a lot more success with this deck, right? So with all that being said, if you liked what you watch or you learned something, and I hope you did, you should totally press that like button, subscribe, or comment. You can also watch me stream many days of the week at twitch.tv/thenerdysteve. And yeah, I just hope you have a wonderful morning, evening, or afternoon, wherever you are, and thanks for watching. Bye.